The Yuba County Five. 5 men, 1 mountain road. On the evening of February 24th, 1978, 5 young men attended a college basketball game at California State University in Chico. It was an ordinary Friday night. They were excited. The next morning, they were scheduled to play in their own basketball tournament, an event they had been looking forward to for weeks. They were known locally as friends, teammates, and members of a close-knit community program for adults with mild intellectual disabilities and mental health challenges. Their names were Jack Madruga, Bill Sterling, Ted Weyer, Gary Matthias, and Jackie Hewitt. After the game ended around 10 p.m, they stopped at a convenience store for snacks. Receipts confirmed their purchases. Witnesses remembered seeing them laughing, animated, discussing the upcoming tournament. Then they began the drive home. They never arrived. 4 days later, a forest ranger discovered their car. It sat abandoned on a remote mountain road near Oroville, nearly 70 miles from where the men lived. The location was strange. The road climbed into the Plumas National Forest. It was covered in snow. Cold. Desolate. There was no obvious reason for the men to be there. The car was unlocked. One window was rolled down. There was no sign of damage, no sign of an accident. The gas tank still held a quarter tank of fuel. Inside were basketball programs, wrappers, and jackets. Everything suggested a sudden departure. But why? Investigators attempted to reconstruct the timeline. The most direct route home from Chico would not have taken them anywhere near the mountains. Yet, somehow, they had driven deep into snowbound terrain. Temperatures that night dropped below freezing. The road conditions worsened with elevation. At some point, the men stopped. And then, for reasons unknown, they left the vehicle. Footprints were difficult to track due to snowfall, but search teams found indications that the group had walked away from the car into deeper wilderness. There was one additional complication. A man named Joseph Shons reported suffering a mild heart attack while stranded on that same mountain road that night. He claimed he saw headlights behind him and heard whistles and voices. He believed a group of people stood near a vehicle, but when he called for help, the lights disappeared. His testimony was inconsistent, yet it placed other people, possibly 5 men, on that road at the same time. It raised an unsettling possibility. Had something frightened them? Snow hindered early search efforts. Helicopters combed the forest. Volunteers trekked across drifts and ravines. Days and weeks passed. No trace. Families waited. The community grew uneasy. The car remained where it had been found, untouched, as though its occupants had intended to return. In June, more than 3 months later, a group of motorcyclists discovered a Forest Service trailer deep in the mountains. Inside, they found the body of Ted Weir. He lay on a bed. Wrapped tightly in blankets. His beard had grown thick. He had lost an estimated 80 pounds. The autopsy determined he had died of starvation and hypothermia. But there was something more disturbing. The trailer contained ample supplies. Sea rations, dehydrated food, matches, fuel, enough to sustain someone for months. Yet most of it had gone untouched. Nearby, searchers found the remains of Jack Madruga and Bill Sterling. Their bodies were located along the route between the car and the trailer. They had succumbed to hypothermia. Not far away lay skeletal remains later identified as Jackie Hewitt. Only one member of the group remained missing. Gary Mathias. Despite extensive searches, No trace of him was ever found. The trailer was not easy to reach. It sat nearly 20 miles from the abandoned car, through snow, across uneven terrain, up elevation. How had they navigated it? Why had they not returned to the vehicle? Inside the trailer, investigators found Weah's feet severely frostbitten. His shoes were missing. Matthias's shoes were found inside the trailer. This detail suggested that Matthias may have been alive long enough to exchange footwear, which meant someone had survived longer than the others, perhaps weeks. Matthias was different from the others. He was a US Army veteran, more physically capable. He had been diagnosed with schizophrenia, but was stable on medication. He was familiar with wilderness environments. Some investigators speculated that he led the group into the mountains. Others believed he tried to save them. If he survived the longest, where did he go? Why was his body never found? The most haunting detail remains the unused supplies. Food tins still sealed, matches untouched, a heating system that could have been activated. Weah had remained alive for weeks, perhaps up to 13 weeks, which means he endured hunger while surrounded by provisions. Why were they not used? Was someone afraid to open them? Did they believe help was coming? Or were they too disoriented to act rationally? Several explanations have been proposed. A wrong turn leading to panic, an attempt to avoid someone on the road, a misjudged shortcut, psychological breakdown under stress, but none fully account for the distance travelled on foot, or the abandonment of the car, or the failure to use life-saving supplies. The mountain offers no explanation. For the families, the unanswered questions became a second tragedy. They struggled to understand how a simple night out could end in desolation. Why drive so far off course? Why leave safety behind? Why walk deeper into danger? There were no signs of foul play, no evidence of violence, and yet the circumstances feel incomplete. Gary Matthias remains officially missing. No confirmed sightings, no remains. Some believe he perished in the forest. Others speculate he wandered farther, disoriented, beyond the search radius. A remote possibility suggests he survived and disappeared intentionally. But there is no proof. Five men set out for a basketball game. 5 men laughed in a convenience store. 5 men drove into the night. 4 were found. 1 was not. The car still stands as a symbol. Fuel in the tank. Keys absent. Doors unlocked. A moment frozen in time. The Yuba County Five case remains officially unresolved. Not because we lack facts, but because the facts refuse to form a clear story. On that cold mountain road in 1978, something shifted. A decision was made. A direction chosen. And the consequences stretched far beyond a single winter night. The forest is quiet now. Snow falls again each year. And somewhere among the trees, the final answers remain buried.